Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Elements. I'm Robbie. Today we are exploring entrepreneurship from a different perspective, not just profit and scaling, but sustainability, ethical trade, and long term impact. We are joined by John Christian Rindoni, founder and CEO of Symbiosis Infinity Group, a global business and consulting firm focused on conscious leadership and ethical business ecosystem. John, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be your guest, and I really look forward to this podcast today.
Yes. I remember earlier when we briefly spoke about your business, I understand that you worked across 30 plus countries and multiple industries. What originally inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking it. I think it's it runs in the family. It runs in the DNA of the family. My parents were small business owners as well, so not a big scale, but kind of you know, do it yourself type of mentality and go getter mentality, and be able to also build something meaningful, which is what entrepreneurship is all about. Of course, we all know that entrepreneurship is not an easy road. It takes a lot of strong mindset, a lot of resilience. You're facing a lot of challenges, so it really helps you also build some meaningful connections and network along the way and around the world. And I have to say that I have been blessed, during my career to be able to conduct business projects in 30 plus countries in Asia, Middle East, Europe, North America, Africa, and I met wonderful people along the way. So it's all part of the journey.
Great. For people hearing about Symbiosis Infinity Group for the first time, how would you explain your business in simple terms? I mean, what exactly are you helping companies to achieve?
Yeah, thank you for asking this. So, Symbiosis Infinity Group, SIG, we are a global consulting firm driving ethical growth through circular supply chain models and sustainable ecosystems, specifically between developed markets and developing regions, in order to really promote the conscious business growth model and the way business is done. So, the philosophy behind is that every business has a purpose. Like as a human being, you need to have a purpose to live, right? And you wake up every day with your purpose in mind. It makes your life so much more intentional. And we also, for businesses, it should be the same. When you have a purpose, it should be beyond just making profit. Profit is important, but beyond making profit, you need to have a purpose. And for us, the purpose is to make sure that every business deal that we help conduct, whether it is through circular supply chain or bringing more value-added investment in developing region, has a circular effects on communities, on smaller companies, so that everyone can actually benefit in kind of a more or less equal share when doing business. We are advising company how to step away from linear type of model to more embedded and inclusive ecosystems that basically allow each and every stakeholder to thrive through what we call the Symbiosis Infinity Loop, which is trademarked, which we invented, and that we implement across different verticals and across different parts of the world.
You mentioned about your collaboration in Asia and in India, sustainable coffee brands and ethical sourcing ecosystem are growing rapidly, but many systems are still fragmented. Do you see strong opportunities for collaboration in Asia and India?
Yes, yes, of course. Right now, our main focus is to build ecosystems in Africa. Specifically, in right now, we're working on projects in Cameroon for the cocoa industry. But of course, this can be duplicated to any part of the world with any type of agricultural segment where we can analyze basically what type of circularity we can bring. And I'll give you a concrete example of the project that we're working on now in Cameroon. So, in the terms of the cocoa industry, we've analyzed the fact that for decades the farmers they sell in a very linear way with a lot of intermediaries in between. That means from the farmers to the cooperative, farmers to intermediaries, intermediaries cooperative. Then there is another retailer or processing company, and then the chocolate companies or the food ingredient processing companies that are at the end of the chain, and then you have the retailer and so on and so forth. So our idea is really to be able to cut the chain and be able to connect farmers and cooperatives directly with international chocolate companies, international buyers, without having to go through all this middlemen in between. Why do we want to do that? Because the value captured for the cocoa farmers is only 10 to 15% of the total value of the supply chain. Now, it's much too low for actually people that have been cultivating this fruit for generations and only capture a very small fragment of the total value chain. Now, what we've also analyzed is that the cocoa fruit as a whole is very whole, and right now the farmers only sell the beans and make money out of the beans, the nib that are either sold to processing companies to make cocoa butter, cocoa liquor, and all the processing ingredients to make chocolate afterwards. But there's so much more to that than cocoa. And when we analyzed this, we saw that not only, for example, the cocoa husk, which is the global shell, the big shell that's around the that's basically the fruit, is completely discarded and treated as waste, and it's just sometimes used as a fertilizer or as a way to feed animals locally. But there's so much more that we can do with the cocoa husk. And one particular project that we're working actively on, and we're putting together right now a consortium of different companies with looking for impact funding and investors as well, is to capitalize on the cocoa bean shell. So the bean shell is basically the shell that's around the nib. Now, typically, the shells and the beans are sold together to processing companies or to chocolate manufacturers, and the shells are being discarded as waste, so not utilized. Now, over the past 3 years, we've seen that segment actually grow a lot in terms of demand and prices. Why? Because the cocoa bean shell can be used as a food, when turned into a powder, can be used as a food ingredient, a fertilizer, and also as an animal feed. Now, we saw that the value captured here doesn't go to the farmers because the farmers do not know. And we recently hosted webinars with one the head of a cooperative. So, the farmers do not know that they can capitalize on that. And our goal here is to be able to bring investment and companies together so that we can operate a transformation at source by de-woning the nib and the shell, so that we can offer the farmers and the cooperatives an extra a stream of revenue that is not only just for the bean, but also for the shells, therefore differentiating their revenue sources and being able to increase their standard of living. And this will have a trickle-down effect, of course, on the communities and villages. And part of what we do about the profit that we make around the company that we're building for this project is that we reinvest 5% of our profit into community projects. So infrastructure projects. So whether it is building a school, building water infrastructure, improving housing conditions or access to education, access to healthcare. So, we go basically what we say, full circular. We don't just explore one side of the circularity, but we really go full circular. And that's what for us at Symbiosis Infinity Group business should be all about.
That's quite interesting because now I've learned that how coffee waste and byproducts can potentially create new business opportunities through biofuel packaging and, like you mentioned, the circular economy models. And I want to understand that if you are working on a project in Africa, so the profit, the earnings that you're giving back to the society, is it invested in the same country?
Yes. So usually, all the time, what we do is, for example, when we work with a certain group of farmers or cooperative in one particular region, of course, we're going to identify together where are the biggest need in terms of putting back, giving back to the community. So we speak with the villagers, we speak with the local community chiefs to understand where they're lacking. Some might be lacking in education, some might be lacking in healthcare, some might be lacking in infrastructure. So we make sure that we first listen to the reality of what's happening on the ground, and in order to be able to fill up a gap. Now, of course, we don't do this alone. We have partners on the ground. The partner that we have on the ground is Roots and Suits and Power, founded and headed by Miss Linda Tatabod. She's a great woman. She's been in the circularity and sustainability business for more than 15 years. Every year, she organizes the CSR International Forum to bring different actors in the world of sustainability for West Africa. So through these partnerships, we are able to have our boots on the ground, therefore facilitate a lot of communication and facilitate transactions and negotiations with local communities, with local farmers, with local cooperatives, so that it eases the communication process for multinational companies or for companies in certain industry that do not necessarily have the resources or the knowledge to actually be able to go direct to the source, which at the end is much more beneficial because not only they get a better price when we cut out all the middlemen, but also we advise them how to bring circularity within their model so that it can benefit their brand. And when it benefits their brand, then it benefits their customers, which is what it's all about. And when the customer is emotionally bound to your brand, then it becomes more loyal. He buys more with more frequency, and therefore you do not have to spend so much in marketing costs, and therefore your operating margins are higher. So by bringing circularity in your model through our Symbiosis Infinity Loop, everyone has to gain. And this is what, this is how we help company grow in an ethical and sustainable and circular manner.
Definitely, it sounds like a very strong culture into the group. And in India, we do believe in CSR activities. We do have companies that tied up with institutions. We do get collaboration, and even we are on every weekend have been asked to go and be part of that activity. And I understand that too many businesses mainly focus on profit, and since I heard your the randomness of nothing podcast, and on which you mentioned about the purpose, that is what motivates you. So I want to understand that why purpose was equally important to you.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking that. I think, I always tend to use the same analogy when we compare the breath and the profit. So, as a human being, I'm also a somatic breathwork facilitator. So, I do a lot of breathwork and mindfulness practices. And this is an essential part of staying grounded and being very mindful and staying present as well. And this should be part of the daily routine. So, the breath for a human being is essential. But your purpose in life is not just to sit there and breathe, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing anything else. So I compare that with profit for a company. Profit, of course, is essential. Even us as a company, if we don't make money, we cannot create impact. And it is very essential to make money, to generate profit. But the purpose behind making the money needs to be your raison d'être, as we say in French. Why are you in business? And I think, this is the first question that we ask companies when they hire us to drive their ethical growth process is, why are you in business? Well, so it's to sell X, Y, Z. I said, no, no. Why are you in business? What is the purpose behind what you do? What is the purpose behind the product that you're selling? And this changes the perspective of the entire company, as it changes the perspective of every human being. I think that when you wake up, when you know what is your purpose in life, when you are so lucky to figure out the purpose that you have in this life, whether you believe in God or the universe, whenever, whatever you believe in, when this epiphany comes to you and you finally know, why am I here? What is the reason why I'm doing this? Then life becomes so much more intentional. It becomes so much more meaningful, and it brings you a sense of peace as well, because you know why you wake up every day and you know why you are doing what you do. And I think this is essential. So profit, yes, we fully agree. Without profit, there cannot be business. There cannot be, business activity. But profit with intention, profit with purpose, profit with integrity, profit with fairness, profit with sustainability, profit with, trustworthy partnerships that are not just embedded in numbers, but in co-value creation. This is what we're driving. And we've seen it over and over again. When this is driven in a very productive and mutually beneficial manner, it creates magic around the ecosystem.
I agree. I am a Simon Sinek follower, and he first introduced the idea of why in his one of his TED talk. He was focusing on Apple product, iPhone, and you just mentioned about so much of values, integrity, culture, and so much of work that you're doing. And how do you stay aligned with your values while making so many business decisions?
Yeah, that's a very good question. How do we stay aligned with our values? First and foremost, I think you need to identify your values. What drives your values? How do you show up in life on a daily basis? Whether you're at home or outside. So for me personally, it's very important. Authenticity is extremely important. Being myself, whether I am alone in the office or, in public, I think this is one of the core values. And authenticity has the highest vibration in the universe, actually. People tend to think it's gratitude. Gratitude comes second. But authenticity, when you're authentic, people feel it. And it brings a lot of sense of inner peace and inner wisdom when you are your true self. And of course, this doesn't come easily. It takes a lot of mindfulness work, of self-development work, of introspection. But being authentic then brings you to knowing your core values. And once you have these core values, after, it is up to you to decide, am I going to show up with my values every day consistently? Or am I going to bend them around to fit in certain areas of life, to fit in certain groups, to fit in certain business deals? Then after, the decision is yours. But personally, I do not hinge on my values. I am always committed to keeping my integrity, my honesty, my trustworthiness, and my purpose on top of everything else. And for me, this is non negotiable. And I think that when you live in this way, people can resonate with that, because the frequency that you're vibrating on as a human being is then recognized as true. And when you're true to yourself and you're true to others, then you attract the opportunities, you attract the people, you attract the circumstances, and you're able to build a very sane and sound foundation. So this is what it's all about.
Wow, that was quite deep. And in my own journey of when I started this podcast, I started with the reason why when we discussed earlier, because this is from my personal journey, like what challenges I faced, and if only would I have known earlier, I would have made some decisions differently. And it was so resonating when you were speaking about authenticity, because being yourself is so gives you so much of freedom, and in your own skin you feel so comfortable and strong,
Right.
and there is no validation or acceptance that is required from anyone. It just you're so much into your business, and the positive changes that happens surrounding, and the kind of people you attract, that says a lot that you are doing something right. And I think I'm getting that authenticity vibration from your end, and I get to feel it. It's quite
Sure.
exciting.
Yes, I think it doesn't necessarily come like that. I mean, you have to dig deep into yourself, and sometimes, again, God or the universe, whatever God or force you believe that is governing our world, God forces you to face your shadows, face your fears, in order to understand who you really are and be able to embrace your true self. Requires a lot of inner work. It requires a lot of introspection. It requires a lot of presence and mindfulness and willing to go where you don't necessarily want to go. Because we all have a duality, we all have light and we all have shadow. But the people that are integrated, the people that are whole, are the people who have embraced this duality. So yes, I recognize this in me, but also recognize this. And we're humans, so no one is perfect. We are all in all our imperfection. The work that one can do to actually, there's a saying by Carl Jung, famous psychologist, Swiss psychologist, psychiatrist. The biggest gift that one can have in life is to finally find out your true self, who you really are. And once you find that, then your purpose comes easy. So when you don't get distracted by the noise of the notifications, by the TV, by being in crowds, by just always trying to run and do something just to occupy your mind. But when you sit in stillness, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days at a time, then this is where you can come in, be grounded, and be fully mindful of what resonates to you, and just show up in this way in life and consistently. And I think that consistency and discipline really helps in that.
I agree. One of my close friends had this philosophy that once you start enjoying your own company, because sitting idle and doing meditation is not that easy. And once you start that inner reflection, that inner engineering, the good results starts to come out. And once you're comfortable with yourself, magic happens. I
Good.
have just few questions left, and these are last two questions. This is regarding. I want to understand that What early decisions became most important for your company's growth?
What early decision became the most important for our company's growth? It's a very
Or
good
you can
question. So
say about the challenges you faced in your early entrepreneurial journey.
yeah. So it was choosing the right vertical for us, the right vertical according to our model. So we started. So the company is just 1 year old now. We started it in May last year. So it's quite new, but we're experiencing tremendous growth already. How we have from year on year now, the numbers are going to come out, but we have a 35% turnover growth already. So it is very rewarding and very encouraging regarding the number of clients that are reaching out to us, the number of clients that want to work with us in different types of industries. So the challenge that we had is to position ourselves in one of the particular verticals where we saw that our model was the most appropriate. So we started with textile vertical, so with recycling of textile solutions for recycling, for repurposing, and we partnered up with a company called We Disrupt Agency based in Sweden, and we tried to work on this for a couple of months, but it didn't work out. So okay, it happens. We're a young company. We don't necessarily we tried the textile vertical because of the new ERP regulations from the European Union and the responsibilities on brands to really identify their piece of garment all the way through the chain so that it can be recycled, repurposed, or reused. But this didn't work out. So we said, okay, where can we really make a difference for companies in the developed world and in developing regions? And where can we identify the biggest circularity opportunities? And this led us to the cocoa industry. I think it was through my discussion with our partner in Cameroon. So, Linda, Cameroon is not necessarily known as the biggest producer. So you have Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, of course, and you have Ghana, then you have Cameroon. But Cameroon's cocoa has a very particular taste that basically helps refine the taste of the chocolate for all the premium brands out there that are looking to have a different product. So talking with Linda and looking at the different sectors that we could create an impact in, we decided to go in the cocoa industry mainly because the cocoa fruit itself is clearly underutilized. That's number one. Number two, as you know, the cocoa prices are decreasing, and the revenues for the cocoa farmers are also decreasing at the same time, and this creates a lot of struggles among communities, among villages, among people that depend on this type of business. And also looking at the chain, the linear chain that has been on for so many years, it didn't make sense, for us to go through so many intermediaries, put a cap price on the farmers, then they take a huge margin and then they resell to processing companies, and processing companies really sell to chocolate manufacturers. This doesn't make sense. So what we're building now is a cocoa shell, cocoa bean shell valorization program. So we are bringing the necessary capital equipment, the necessary investors, the necessary partners to build transformation of this cocoa bean and this cocoa bean shell at source. So first pilot phase will be to D1 basically the bean and the shell and be able to sell the bean and the shell separate through two different revenue streamlines. Then what we intend to do as a second phase is to have small local transformation units where we can turn these shells and these beans into a powder and sell the powder worldwide to international buyers, either processing companies, chocolate makers, food ingredient manufacturers, instead of going through all this chain. And what is our goal in achieving this is more value added at source, capture more value for the farmers, capture more values for the cooperatives, for entire communities that thrive on that. Because when we look at it, the heritage that there is in the cocoa industry, like in the coffee industry as well, in the many other agricultural products, the people that traditionally cultivate and that this in their DNA capture the less value along the chain. Does that make sense? Absolutely not. Can we change that? Absolutely. Do we have the models? Yes, we do. Is there financing available? Yes, there is. Is there a willingness to cooperate all together and to join forces to make sure that as businesses, we not only increase our profit and our, the brand recognition that we have worldwide through circularity, through sustainability, and at the same time, it helps farmers, cooperatives, entire villages, and in essence, people, because this is what it's all about. Business is done by people, and people should benefit the most from business. So this is what we're all about in the Symbiosis Infinity Group. And we're very passionate about what we do. We're very excited about what we do. And of course, we welcome anyone who's in the cocoa industry, in the chocolate industry, whether you're a chocolate manufacturer, whether you're a processing company, whether you are a food ingredient manufacturer or animal feed manufacturer. We are putting together a total disruption of the supply chain within the cocoa industry that will not only benefit your company directly, but also the farmers and the cooperative. So everyone gets.
I really appreciate that the work you're doing, because it's not just building another business, it's about creating the sustainable and ethical systems, and that especially that it is creating better opportunities for farmers and local communities in the long term.
Yes, correct. This is really the goal. We need to have we need to have short-term goals, but we need to have a long-term vision as well. And what we're building is not just for us, it's for generations to come. So we don't look at business as short-sighted. We don't look at business as just, we're here just to make money and spend the money. Or what we're doing is really creating a legacy behind our model. And, you know, and we hope and we're sure that other companies will take over, will continue on this journey, because it's only on the long term that we will be able to really create value, to create sustainability, to create true circularity, true fairness, true equity in the world. You know, a world of we've seen what a world of extreme greed and selfishness does to the world, and this is exactly the situation we're in now. Why is our model failing? Why our economy slowing down so much? Of course, there's geopolitical influences. There is, financial influences, economic influences. But, when we think about our model and the way we do business, if there's more co-value creation, if there are more circularity, there is less fragmentation. And again, we come back to, mindfulness. When you're fragmented as a human being, you're not whole. So you cannot operate at your full potential. So only when you're whole and when you balance yourself to the point where the fragmentation between your spirit, your emotions, and your action is not there anymore, and you operate as one, and everything resonates, not only inside but outside, then you create magic. And it's the same for our business. When you really combine your purpose with a sense of, I would say, impact, and you take the necessary actions, then your business is aligned and it flows. So yeah, it's an interesting journey that we invite everyone to take a part of.
It's exciting. I have a last question. Speaking of from generations to go and legacy you're planning to leave behind, what advice would you give young entrepreneurs who are trying to build purpose-driven businesses today?
One just very simple advice: listen to your heart. Your heart will tell you everything. Listen to your intuition. Tap into yourself. First, work on yourself. Work on who you really want to be, who you really want to become, what difference you really want to make in the world, and listen to your heart and to your soul calling. And then after, the second advice, I would say, surround yourself with the right people. That is very important. Along the way, you will have people that, will resonate with you. You'll have people that you think resonate with you, but actually don't have the same objectives or don't have the same goals or don't have the same purpose. And that's okay. Everything happens for a reason in life. You learn, you grow, and you move on. And what's important is really to surround yourself with the right people and then to take the right actions at the right time. So first, find your purpose, make sure that is you respond to your heart and your soul calling. Connect with your tribe, the people that really have the same mindset as you and really want the same thing as you, and take the proper actions at the proper time, have a roadmap, have an action plan, and stick to it. And last but not least, and this is the most important, never, ever give up. Never, ever give up. There'll be days, and we still have days, where the phone will not ring, where emails do not come in, when everything seems stuck. But when you stay grounded and when you believe that, your idea is good, you get over that and you say, okay, it's okay. Tomorrow will be a better day. And then tomorrow is better. And then the next day is even better. So stay grounded, stay focused, stay, you know, really resilient in terms of what you do. never give up. And, as we always say, slow and steady wins the race always.
On that very high and positive note, John Christian, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your perspective
Thank you,
on
Robbie.
entrepreneurship.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And I wish you all the best. And of course, if there's any one in India watching this and also looking towards bringing sustainability and circularity in their business model, we'll be more than happy to discuss that with you. You can connect us. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Symbiosis Infinity Group. My name is here, Jean-Christian Rindoni. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Our website is sigconsulting.net, sigconsulting.net. Feel free to reach out, whether it is just to inquire about our services or have a chat about the perspective that we can bring to your community, to your business. We'll be more than happy to do so.
This was
Okay.
fascinating conversation. I think a lot of founders and professionals listening today will take away valuable insight from your journey.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you. I appreciate your commitment and I appreciate your support.